Sean Diddy Combs' defense lawyers want everyone to be quiet, and they're now asking the court to step in. We're going to break down the rapper and media mogul's attempt to silence lawyers, alleged accusers, and potential witnesses as the lawsuits pile up in the wake of his arrest and indictment. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey guys, so this is a Law&Crime legal alert. So a mother was recently awarded millions of dollars in a lawsuit against baby formula manufacturers after her premature baby was diagnosed with necrotizing enterocolitis, or NEC, after receiving bovine-based formula. The lawsuits allege that Enfamil and Similac premature formulas are linked to NEC, but manufacturers, they failed to warn the public of the risks and instead targeted them with false advertising. So if your premature baby was diagnosed with NEC after they were fed Enfamil or Similac, you may qualify for compensation. And one of our legal sponsors is partnering with Wagstaff Law Firm. This is a national firm renowned for their expertise to ensure that eligible claims are thoroughly presented. Visit babyformuladamages.com/sidebar to answer less than 10 questions and check your eligibility to file a claim. Well, there's a new legal development in the Sean Combs criminal case we want to talk to you about. Now, his attorneys want to ensure that everybody quiets down. Yeah, they don't like what they're seeing. They have written a letter to the new judge overseeing this case, Judge Arun Subramanian, and they are asking for a gag order to be imposed. And we're going to break down this letter written by Combs' defense counsel. This is led by attorney Mark Agnifilo. But remember what is happening as we talk right now. Combs not only faces federal criminal charges of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution, allegations that Combs controlled and directed a criminal enterprise for years that was engaged in a variety of crimes, but especially characterized by the abuse and sex trafficking of women. But at the same time, as all that is going on, Combs is being hit with lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. Particularly, Texas attorney Tony Busby announced at a press conference several weeks ago that he would be filing lawsuits on behalf of 120 alleged victims of Sean Combs. And he wasn't lying. Starting last week, now this week, he has done just that. Filed 6 lawsuits last week, 5 this week. People who claim that they were drugged and sexually assaulted by Combs and other unnamed celebrities. Some of these victims claim they were minors when they were abused. We just did a whole sidebar yesterday breaking down the claims of an Alabama woman who says that she was 13 when Combs allegedly raped her in 2000. So it's not great for Sean Combs, both professionally or legally, that all of this is happening outside of the criminal case, and that's the key. Combs' lawyers are now saying all of the public commentary regarding these lawsuits, regarding the criminal case, it needs to stop. And so now we're going to go into this letter to Judge Subramanian. So the letter starts, quote, "We write on behalf of our client Sean Combs, pursuant to Local Rule 23.1 and the 5th and 6th Amendments, to request an order prohibiting further extrajudicial statements from prospective witnesses and their lawyers that substantially interfere with Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial." Now, the 6th Amendment concerns rights about ensuring a defendant gets a fair trial. The 5th Amendment, among other things, ensures a person isn't deprived of life, liberty, or process without due process. And Local Rule 23.1 of the Southern District of New York, where, by the way, this case is being prosecuted, governs what a lawyer who is participating or associated with a criminal case, including prosecutors, lawyers for targets, lawyers for subjects, lawyers for witnesses, what they can and cannot say out of court about the case. Well, Combs' attorneys are saying that Combs, like every other defendant, has a right to a fair trial that's not unduly influenced by prejudicial statements that are made to the media. The main concern, generally speaking, is you do not want to poison a potential jury pool in a case. And with all of these comments that are amplified across the media, amplified across social media networks, that can be a problem. A defendant is entitled to an impartial jury. For Combs, these comments could prejudice that. I mean, you have a potential trial date not too far away, May 2025, and pretrial publicity is a major concern, and it's a major concern in a very high-profile case where potential jurors are seeing all of this, and it's influencing their opinions. That's why you need sometimes the courts to step in to impose a gag order, and that is what Sean Combs' defense team seems to be asking for here. That's what they're essentially asking for. And by the way, they say this is their last resort. There are no other remedies to curb this danger, this risk. So Combs' attorneys write, as the court is aware, Mr. Combs has been the target of an unending stream of allegations by prospective witnesses and their counsel in the press. These prospective witnesses and their lawyers have made numerous inflammatory extrajudicial statements aimed at assassinating Mr. Combs' character in the press. That's the key, in the press. Not necessarily the legal documents, but in the press. Now, Combs' attorneys provide examples throughout this letter of their arguments. So, by way of example here, they cite a Billboard article from May where accusers call Combs sick and a monster with no soul. They also cite an article from Complex where a lawyer for accuser Cassandra Ventura had called Combs' apology for allegedly beating Ventura in a hotel hallway back in 2016, an incident that was documented on surveillance footage that was published by CNN just a few months ago. This lawyer apparently called Combs' apology on Instagram disingenuous and a form of, quote, pathetic desperation. And this part's important too. Combs' attorneys in this letter, they highlight how the prosecution hasn't identified any of its victims or witnesses. That's true. In no filing, including the indictment, has the government ever revealed the names of any of these people, which, by the way, is standard in a federal case. They may not even reveal these identities until closer to the trial. But Mark Agnifilo and Sean Combs' defense counsel say, since the government hasn't ID'd any of these people, quote, Mr. Combs has no choice but to assume that each accuser, no matter how frivolous or outlandish their allegations, is a prospective witness. And look, that's true. We don't know who's cooperating with the government. So Combs' defense attorney saying, look, we have to treat everyone as a potential witness. We have to regulate all of this commentary in the public. In other words, we have to assume everyone may be connected to this criminal case, and their statements to the press, to the media, to the public, they have to be regulated. It could adversely affect Sean Combs' rights in his criminal case. Now, Combs' defense attorneys say there's another issue. Witnesses' lawyers have also vouched for the credibility and character of their clients and opined on the potential evidence. And Combs' attorney cites several examples here. They say there are articles in Rolling Stone and KHOU about Tony Busby where he publicly claimed that 25 of his clients say they were minors when they were sexually abused by Sean Combs. And Combs' lawyers, by the way, they call these allegations, quote, shockingly prejudicial and false. But they say that's a problem, him making public statements about that. Or how about attorney Ariel Mitchell-Kidd, who represents a Sean Combs accuser? She went on News Nation and she claimed that Combs threatened her client with a knife. Or how about attorney Gloria Allred, who represents several of the accusers? She told ABC that when it comes to Sean Combs here, it's all about power and the abuse of power. They say this has an effect, or this could have an effect. And Sean Combs' lawyers also claim that there are those who, quote, peddle in outlandish conspiracy theories too. And an example they cite is a Daily Beast article from just a few days ago that reported on the claim that baby oil supplied by Combs was spiked with date rape drugs. We actually did a sidebar on that claim because remember, there was 1,000 bottles of baby oil lubricant that was recovered during the course of these raids on Sean Combs' properties. Theory has come forward, an allegation has come forward during the course of these lawsuits that were they spiked with drugs? Interesting. Well, again, we did a sidebar on that. Now, Combs' lawyers say all of this is problematic. This is all prejudicial, and this all needs to stop. In fact, Mark Agnifilo and Sean Combs' defense counsel say that these lawyers are doing the government's work for them because they're commenting on and vouching for the strength of the government's case and their evidence. And they cite comments from accusers' lawyers like, the clock is ticking, and the evidence is very clear, and it was only a matter of time. These public comments. Now, Combs' defense counsel says there's another issue, that these lawyers who are representing accusers in civil suits, they've essentially admitted that they're talking to the government about their clients acting as potential witnesses in the criminal case. For example, this letter says that there's a lawyer who came out that said that he's going to be at the Assistant United States Attorney's Office for a 10th time, and that his client, quote, supplied key evidence to the Assistant U.S. Attorneys for the Southern District of New York. Or how about this? You have another accuser's lawyer who's suggesting that her client was not the first, the second, the seventh, or the ninth person meeting with the government. Or how about this? Another lawyer claiming that his clients have already spoken to the government and that they would be made available to the government. Again, the issue is with these people making extrajudicial statements, out-of-court statements like that. That's what the issue is. And when you think about it, by the way, if you're a prosecutor, would you oppose this? You would want to make sure that your case is not damaged in any way, that it's not contaminated in any way. They may sign on to this, but we'll see. Now, this is what Combs' counsel is asking for. They are saying, quote, this court should exercise its discretion in issuing an order requiring all potential witnesses and their counsel to refrain from making extrajudicial statements that have a substantial likelihood to interfere with Mr. Combs' trial or otherwise prejudice the due administration of justice. We further request that the court direct these potential witnesses and their counsel to remove all online postings under their control that would offend the local rule. And maybe I was a little premature saying the government would sign on to this letter because towards the end of the letter, Sean Combs' defense counsel kind of puts the government on notice or the government on blast in a way. They say, quote, in addition, to the extent the government has directed or authorized such extrajudicial statements contrary to its own obligations to ensure a fair trial, we request that the court direct the government to disclose such communications. That is quite the accusation. If you call it an accusation, but it seems like an accusation. Then again, I'm not surprised because in prior filings, Combs' attorneys have accused the Department of Homeland Security of leaking the 2016 Cassandra Ventura hallway video to the media. Now, I will say it's also interesting because there is another jab at the government in this letter. They are basically accusing the government, if they're not complicit in these statements being released, they're saying the government's not really doing much to fix things. Combs' counsel writes how there were allegations made against Sean Combs that he participated in a violent sexual assault in March 2018 in Orinda, California, but they write, quote, although the government is in possession of documentary evidence demonstrating that Mr. Combs was not present anywhere near Orinda on the date in question, the government has done nothing to quell the proliferation of these inflammatory false reports, nor has it even responded to Mr. Combs' request that the government direct its witnesses to refrain from making inflammatory statements to the press. Not clear exactly what evidence that would be to show Sean Combs wasn't there. Could be, I don't know, cell phone records, text messages, geolocation data, travel receipts, who knows. But interesting nonetheless. And Combs' attorneys, they close out this letter by explaining to the court that time is of the essence. Quote, this request is time sensitive. Each day that passes brings a fresh wave of publicity, often at the direction of accusers and their counsel, further prejudicing Mr. Combs' right to a fair trial. Therefore, we respectfully request that any response be filed on October 30th, 2024. Now, I will say, I think it's interesting they're filing this letter with the court, taking issue with what is said in the media. And I mentioned before how they already accused Homeland Security of leaking the Cassandra Ventura video. But remember in a hearing, what was it, 2 weeks ago, in front of Judge Subramanian, where the government fought back and they said, okay, you want us to stop talking about the case? You want there to be an order put in place about what is disclosed to the media? They said to attorney Mark Agnifilo, you're just as guilty. They said, well, if we're going to have a gag order here, the defense needs to agree to it too, because they say he's not innocent. The defense isn't innocent. They called out Mark Agnifilo for doing an interview with TMZ right after Sean Combs was arrested in September, where he called the criminal case, quote, the takedown of a successful black man. In fact, a prosecutor said that this sounded like he was accusing the feds of engaging in a racist prosecution. And this prosecutor told the court statements of this sort seriously risk a fair trial in this case. So Judge Subramanian at the time instructed Combs' legal team to propose an order that would govern both public statements by both sides. And by the way, it seems that Mark Agnifilo is kind of taking that to heart, because when reporters ran around him after the hearing, he definitely wasn't as forthcoming and open with the press as he had been in the past. Take a look.
I'm not going to talk about anything that I haven't said in court or in the papers. These are all great questions, but I'm just not going to get into it. So
can you speak about your concerns about the leak in the video? You have spoken about that before.
I did it in the court papers, and I'm just going to stick to the court papers. As you guys all know, let me just finish. as you all know, I made a request today for what we were calling a gag order, and I'm not going to walk out of court and do anything other than live up to that.
Talk about his demeanor in jail and what it's been like.
So here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to answer any more questions. I want to help you guys out, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go back and speak to my colleagues, and then I'm going to be
just
done.
tell us about the
Thanks.
MDC and what it's like.
Yeah. Thanks.
Can we see him being transferred anytime soon? Can we see him being moved anytime soon, or?
Sir, which way are you headed to go? Which way would you like to go? Okay, yeah, let's go this way.
All right, so we shall see what comments are being made outside of court with respect to this case and whether or not a gag order will be put in place. Very interesting development. Let's see how this shakes out. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, though, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.